In northern India, the United Provinces of Agra and Oudh, which has been under Muslim rule for 6 centuries and which are situated the important Muslim capital cities of Agra, Delhi, Lucknow, Allahabad, and Rampur, there is a Hindu population of 41 million against the Muslim population of 7 million. I said million, right? I'm having trouble speaking. According to the census of 1931, the Hindus and the Muslims have lived together as fellow citizens for centuries, and their reciprocal social and cultural influences have created a fusion from which can be seen in their similarity of language, dress, and general level of culture. The Hindus in these parts are near to the Muslims in all these respects and provide a striking contrast to their Hindu brethren of the same castes living in southern India. Social reform. Position of women. Islam forbids drinking, all intoxicants, gambling, usury, and all forms of vice. It introduced far-reaching changes in the social structure of the period. Muhammad said, "Henceforth, usury is prohibited. The debtor shall return only the principal, and the beginning will be made with the loans of my uncle Abbas, son of Abdul Muttalib, and henceforth the vengeance of blood is forbidden, and all blood feuds abolished, commencing with the murder of my cousin Ibn Rabi'a, son of Al-Harith, son of Abdul Muttalib." So far back as the 7th century of the Christian era, Islam abolished the horrible practice of female infanticide, forbidding among the, I'll just say polytheist Arabs, gave clear directions leading to the restriction of polygamy, restrained the unlimited rights exercised by men over their wives, and gave women both spiritual and material equality with men. Muslim women inherit a share of the property of their husbands, parents, and kinsfolk. Pierre Kravitz, an American judge in the Cairo mixed tribunals, after a long experience of Muslim law as administered in the Egyptian capital, says, "Muhammad was probably the greatest champion of women's rights the world has ever seen. Islam conferred upon the Muslim wife property rights and jurisdictional status exactly the same as that of her husband. She is free to dispose of and manage her financial assets as she pleases, without let or hindrance from her husband." Bertram Thomas says, "His humanity was all-embracing. He never ceased to champion the cause of women against the ill treatment of his contemporaries. He condemned the practice of inheriting the widow with the rest of an estate, as though she were a chattel. She must not be a despised creature to be ashamed of, and to be ill-treated any more, but a person to love and cherish and respect. At her feet lay the gates of paradise. And so was slavery. He labored for the amelioration of the slave's lot, liberating any who were presented to him. He taught that the slave mother should not be separated from her children, extolled the freeing of slaves as penance, lauded the feeding of the orphan in times of famine, and the poor man who lies in the dust. Islam laid the foundation for the abolition of slavery by making the manumission of captives of war an item of expenditure in the budget of the Muslim state. In any case, slavery is understood in the West as unknown to the Muslimin. The Mamluk sultans of Egypt, the slave kings, and maliks of Indian history are examples to prove this point. Great social changes were brought about by breaking down the differences between free man and freed man, placing every Muslim under the protection of the entire community, and instituting a compulsory poor rate, zakat, by which every Muslim had to pay 2.5% of his total assets for the year to be collected in the central treasury and distributed among the poor. The Jewish law of inheriting a brother's childless widow and of divorcing a childless wife were also made illegal by Muhammad. The Quran is among the first sacred books to put a restriction on polygamy by religious enactment. And remember that in the Bible, the restriction, people aren't supposed to marry the polytheist, and then Christians aren't supposed to marry non-Christians, and bishops aren't supposed to marry more than one. But higher and lower ranks in the church are allowed that. But the consent of women, for example, is not a condition in the Bible for marriage.